Our special guest today is Robyn Hatcher. That's RobynHatcher, robynhatcher.com. She is a former actress and a media trainer, a professional media trainer in New York for top executives and others who want to learn how to be more comfortable in front of a camera. And we all know today with Zoom and other vehicles, being on camera is a big deal. So she's going to help us learn how to prepare to sound better and prepare how to appear better. Let's welcome Robyn Hatcher.
60 to 80% of your effectiveness comes from the nonverbal cues, like what people see and what people hear. And so unfortunately on video, people get a lasting impression of you on video because that's their first and it's two-dimensional, and you don't have that actual, what I like to call that hormones going back and forth that you get in person, that you get another sense of the person. And so while I'm loving everyone with their virtual backgrounds as a listener, as a presenter, I usually don't use virtual unless I have a really super clean green screen in back of me so that I know that when my hands move, they're not going to be going in and out of view. Right, just like that, because it becomes really distracting. And then what your listener is doing is listening way more, watching to see, oh, wow, where'd her finger go? Rather than listening to what it is that you have to say. So I love this, just having a plain background, which is a screen that I bought. It's just a now it's a 4-panel screen that I got ordered because it keeps some simplicity and it gives your audience something to focus on. And I heard this recently that, being slightly off center is great too, because then it's not as, I saw that, Ed, and having yourself really centered in the frame though, top to bottom. And if you'll notice, like I have quite a bit of my torso showing. And that means that I can gesture and my hands won't look weird popping up and down. And I can gesture from the point of my chest, which is what in real time, what I like to call the passion plane. When you're gesturing from the passion plane, you have more energy, you have more involvement, and people are more passionate about what it is that you say. So when you have that much of your torso showing, you can then still are able to add passion to your words by being able to gesture from your passion plane. So the couple of things that you want to think about, and of course having lighting in front of you, because a lot of us, if we're in the dark, and I've had this happen, I've had conversations with people and their faces are shadowed a little bit, not bright enough. And what happens is I stop paying attention to them, or I stop thinking about them clearly because they're in a shadow. And then the other thing that happens is because, if I get into brain science, I'll never stop. But, if I get into the brain science of it, is like the reason why visual is so important is because our brain filters for things that are safe and things that are not safe. And so when the brain sees something in the shadow, we're taught to think that something that is unseen is dangerous. So if we're seeing something that is in the shadow, our brain is going to think, oh, that person might be hiding something, or that person might be a little bit dangerous. So the more clarity that you can put on your face, the more clarity you'll have in your message, and the more clear people will be able to take in what you're saying. And so I have a ton of light on me that, if you notice, like when I first came on, some of it was on, some of it was not. And I turned it back on, and some of it is reflecting off of a white surface, because then you get that backlit light. Anything else? Any other questions about, yes, Sandrine?
Yes, thank you very much. I have a challenge. I need to wear glasses. My glasses are blue light screen, and I have these huge things on my glasses all the time, very distracting.
Yeah, there is a way that, like, see, right now you get reflection here on my glass. If you look down, further down from the camera, then that reflection goes away.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that you want to do. And it's a constant battle, but that's one way. And then you can play around with it. Like here, it's like now you're just seeing my light. reflecting in my glasses. Here, not so much.
Okay.
So you can play around with that, and you want to play around with where the camera is situated. And I like that Miriam just turned her camera on, looking absolutely perfect. Although I might move away from, because that thing that's directly behind your head might be a little bit distracting, because it's like it's sort of like growing out of your head. And so, but other than that, your lighting is terrific.
So I want to introduce Miriam, who comes to us from Milano. So ciao, welcome.
Ciao. Yes, thank you very much, Ed, and it's very nice to meet you all.
Yes. Sandrine, I'm sure like I would love more light on your face.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I have a remote thing.
Okay, yeah, so that's one of the things that you would do. And if anybody else wants feedback, let me know. Don, I would love to see more of your body.
Hey now. Didn't know this was that kind of call. Okay, I'll work on that.
Yeah, notice the difference here. I'm here, and then if I'm here, that's a whole different image there. So I've got a hair that lifts, and that's one of the things. And I have my computer. I mean, I have an image of this. If I can take a few minutes to, if I can find it really quickly, I will share it with you. But I have an image of my behind the scenes, because it's really interesting all that it takes. And I will show you that in a second.
Sandrine, that's a lot
Do you have
better.
any questions?
It's better?
Yeah.
Thank
Nice
you.
work.
Oh, let me look in a second.
Yeah.
All right, anybody have any questions while I'm searching this? I mean, it's not important.
Well,
Yeah.
how's my body showing? I don't know. It's hard to, like, what's happening is that if I go back where you see more of my body, it's hard for me to see much. But I'm pushing back from the computer. But what do you think?
Let me see. Let me go back.
So Philip, are you wearing a swimsuit?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine, Don. I think that,
No, it's just a
that
shirt.
looks good. That looks good. And I'll keep looking. Anybody else have any questions while I am searching? And notice, like, look at my eyes when I'm searching. What am I doing? I'm looking down, and it probably looks like my eyes are closed. So that's one of the things you want to be careful of with the camera eye level. And I just found it, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you what my behind the scenes looks like. Oh, there are people in the waiting room, are they?
No.
Oh, now you're not allowing me to show my share my screen.
Oh, you need to be a co-host.
Not necessarily. You can give me permission.
Paul, are you there?
Okay, so Don, yeah, that looks much better. Sandrine, that does look better. And but Don, I would still also, you almost look like you're running away. Like on stage, what happens is like our feet tell us where we want to go. And on stage, it's really interesting. If you're standing on stage and you have one foot behind you, oftentimes the subconscious mind will start to think, oh, that person does not want to be on the stage. So that's one of those indicators of your feet telling our audience and your listener where the person wants to go. So that's a sign that somebody is not grounded and not really centered and not facing stage. What it's looking like in your case right now, Don, is with your shoulder almost off the screen. It's like, oh, Don, probably there's something over there on the other side that he'd rather be at. So yeah, that's much better. Yeah, even that light slightly off. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so that's one of the ways that you prepare with the lighting and the background and all of that. I still can't share, but if we get to the point of letting me share, I'll show you what I have. But I'll explain it. What I have is like, I have a small surface, and what I was realizing is on my desk, it wasn't high enough. I also have a webcam. I don't use my computer cam. I have a webcam, and I have an external microphone. So those are some of the things that I've chosen to do to upgrade the way that things come across. I also made sure when this pandemic hit and I knew that I would be doing so much online, I made sure that I was hardwired to my router rather than depending on Wi-Fi, because the Wi-Fi has been so tricky with so many people using it, and it gets really terrible. So I hardwire all the time.
Oh, good. So I would like to invite everyone who's in the background to unmute and very quickly introduce themselves and be on camera if you wish. Okay, so please go right ahead and unmute and say hi. So Alicia?
Sure. I am Alicia Scott Weirs. I am with World at Work. We'll be doing a lot of virtual events coming up, and just looking for some tips on how to best present. I did not get like full makeup today or anything, so hopefully that's a quick solve there. But in terms of backgrounds and things, I was looking for some advice there. I do think like my background and the room that I'm in can sometimes seem a little busy, so I really liked Robyn's 4-panel screen there, so I think that's an awesome idea. So yeah.
Okay, so Alicia, thank you, and I thank World of Work for being involved. We certainly invite you to ask any questions, make any comments, suggest anything. Please just jump in. Okay, Inez, welcome. You're from Boston, Air
Yep.
Inc. Air Inc., right?
Yes, Air Inc. So yeah, I am in Boston, Director of Advisory Services for Air Inc. And Ed, you and I are doing a video tomorrow. So
Yeah, tomorrow morning.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Air Inc. recent survey about COVID and all the mess that's created and some results. And so we're looking forward to that show. That is at 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 a.m. California. If anybody wants to be invited, just tell me, okay? All right, once again, Miriam, you're in Milano. So Miriam, you're going to be interviewed by Fox TV in the US in the fall, is that correct?
Yes, right. That's quite exciting. And I'm going to be interviewed live, so I will fly to the US for it.
Yeah, well, I
Wow,
think,
fabulous.
so you and Robyn ought to catch up after this. And
Yeah, so what are some of the things that you're going to be interviewed on?
I'm going to be interviewed on my new leadership model. It's a program that I have developed. It's a methodology, actually, that I have developed that has been quite powerful. It's been transforming several leaders and teams and organizations. And so I'm really happy to be able to bring it to the US, because I would really like to bring it globally.
Oh, that's great. And so, Philip, you and I are going to be talking later about leadership competencies, but you're going to be talking at the Asia Society, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to be presenting on the 24th to the Asia Society, talking about the 5 leadership priorities that are required to transition to the new normal. So,
right.
yeah.
What's number one? What's number one?
Number one. Well, I mean, there are a few things. I mean, one is to rethink the situation that you're in, reconnect with individuals differently, develop resiliency, and also reimagine the workplace that you're in right now. And there's a lot of details under that, but usually people think of the new normal as just some amorphous change that people have to go to, but it's really back to the future. The future is going to be very different. And, you know, in fact, the new normal is not a new term. In 1918, individuals were thinking about this. So anyway, that's what it's going to be about.
Good. Well, thank you. Yeah.
I feel like one of the most important things when we're talking about any of this or any of the new changes is to solidify it with the why that all of this is needed and why it's happening. And often that's the one thing that we forget to mention and to just to talk about, because the what is tangible, and yes, it's important, but what I always like to talk about is that people make decisions and engage and believe and follow things and do things based on emotional reasons and not logical reasons. And there are so many logical reasons for us to be doing new things, but we need to tap into also the emotional reasons of which is the why we need to do it rather than the what it is that we need to do. Because otherwise I feel like for years we've been putting Band-Aids on things, and the Band-Aids fall off because there's no real substance behind the why. So in every interview, every media interview, it's very easy to answer the questions. And often people will ask you the questions, and then the person, what you do is you answer that question. But what you really often want to do is like figure out, what is that question about? What is the why behind that question? And how can I answer it in a way that touches the emotional reasons behind my what? And that can be done in stories, and that can be done in a lot of different ways that we could talk about. But it's we get very interested and we get really trapped in just answering the questions as it is asked. And oftentimes that is not the real question. And what I like to call it, I know we've all seen that iceberg image. It's like the question is the top of the iceberg, but underneath the iceberg is actually what's being asked. And as we're being interviewed, we want to think about what is underneath that iceberg so that we can answer that, because that's where the value goes and that's where the audience is going to be engaged.
Oh, thank you. Let me ask you about scripting. Do you recommend scripting, Robyn?
It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about a media interview, I do not, here's what I don't like about scripting. You have to be really talented to be able to use a script. And I call myself a recovering actor because I have been an actor for the majority of my life. So I know what it's like and what it takes to memorize a script, to get it into your body. Rehearsals are, when people do plays and when people do theater, when people do anything, the rehearsal period is the most important part. And that can go on for months because you have to understand everything. And now we're thinking that, okay, this is my life, I should know it and I could write it down and think. But it doesn't work that way. When you write a script, most of the time you're writing a script as you would write a letter or an article or a blog post. That is not necessarily how you would speak. And therefore written language and spoken language are completely different. So if you do want to write a script, the way that you would do it is you would talk into your phone or talk into something and record it, listen to yourself, transcribe what you would say, and then you can create a script from that. But even then, I'm very leery about advising people to write scripts for interviews. Like I just gotten to the point where we're large keynote presentations, I will write a script and I will try to memorize it. However, when you write it for a short period of time, if it's something that you're not used to, if it's something that you don't have enough time to rehearse inside and out, what happens is you try to memorize a script, and our brain and memory and our brain in speaking extemporaneously is different. It works differently. And so when you are trying to think about the words that you wrote down, what happens is your brain starts to try to get those words out. Your eye contact turns into a completely different thing because we can't see it. It's a micro thing, but your listener, then you kind of disappear from presence and you have reappeared into the recesses of your brain trying to recall information unless it's really in your genes, in your bones. Then the other problem that happens is if you were to forget one word of your carefully memorized answer, what happens is you often start then going down the rabbit hole. Oh my God, I forgot that word. Oh my God. And then everything is gone and your confidence is gone and you start like beating yourself up because you forgot something, whereas the audience had no idea that you had any intention of saying it in the first place. So it doesn't matter. And so that's the one thing. And that's the one thing about remembering what you thought. The other thing is that you become wooden. You become really, because your mind and your memory is going back into what you were trying to remember, you become stiffer and more wooden. So it's not to say that you don't prepare. You do need to prepare. So the advice I give for interviews is to have at least 3 or 4 or 5 key bullet points. 3 is the minimum and probably the maximum too, because you don't want to get overextended. If you have 3 bullet points of things that you want to get said, regardless of what the questions are asked. A lot of times we'll say, oh, I want to know the questions in advance. What is the question in advance? Well, tell me the questions. Most interviewers won't tell you the questions. And if they do tell you the questions, that's gravy. And then you don't want to then take that question and say, oh, let me answer it. Let me know exactly how I'm going to answer it, because then there's a little nuance around there. So you want to have those 3 points. And of those 3 points, you want to have different entry points into it. You know, so whatever that question is, you will then be able to get to your point in there. So it's like, these are the 3 points that I must get said. And no matter what the question is, if I am not leaving this interview until these 3 points get said. And so either you take that question and you bend it to feed your point, or you take that question, you bridge to one of those points, or you answer that question with one of your points. That make sense?
Yeah. So Robyn, I'd like to go to Rob Maisel. Rob, tell us about your book that you're writing. What's the working title? What's the working theme?
Thanks, Ed. So there isn't a title just yet, but the theme is how travel changes lives. So I've been so fortunate to have all these amazing travel experiences around the world, and really felt that it's time to share these experiences with the world.
Yeah, and so it's about believing in what you can achieve. Is that correct?
There's definitely a motivational element in there. So it ties in personal development, positive thinking, and a lot of the tools that I use to achieve some of these amazing travel-related goals.
So you went around the world with Bloomberg, or right after that experience, correct?
So after the Bloomberg experience, I then went around the world, on my own.
Cool, that's really cool. So I want to make sure you know Philip Berry. Philip Berry is an author. He wrote a book that's become a real big seller called well, Philip, tell us about your book.
Well, it's called Being Better Than You Believe, 8 Steps to Ultimate Success, where I outline how individuals and organizations can move from their present levels of performance to higher levels of capability. And I outline a number of principles and also specific questions that individuals would answer, whether they're looking for a new job, whether they're switching a career, or whether they want to rebrand themselves if they happen to have a small business or a large business, so that way they could be more impactful.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so.
I tried to get 3 in there, Robyn.
So Robyn, you just heard some impromptu conversation here. So what can you recommend, without me looking down too much? I'll stop doing that. But what can you recommend to the people who are here? Let's do this real time here, real time advice. Give us some advice. Robyn.
Yeah, I'm not frozen.
It's not scripted.
Okay, I'm thinking. So the real-time advice when you're answering a media question, and I do it sometimes, I don't do it all the time, is to tee it up with something that's going to attract the listener. Because both of you, what you both did was answer Ed's question, right? Which is because we're all good people, and that's what we're taught to do. We answer the question. And another way we could have done it is Ed asked the question, Robert says, do you realize that travel can extend your life by 20%? I'm making this up, of course. What I've written about is my adventures in travel. You know, so what we're doing right then is like, whoa, I want to know more about what you have to say. And so similarly, how can we get the listener's attention right off the bat so that it's not interview as usual? So what happens is, what tends to happen in a media interview is, like, we're so used to seeing them, we're so used to hearing them. is that it becomes just white noise after a while until we hear something that sparks our attention. And what I'm offering is there is an opportunity to spark attention right away, so that then it gives them a reason to continue to listen. And it gives them context with which to listen more. And then, because what it does is that it grabs your emotions.
Okay, now when you were on Good Morning America, just as an example, were you 100% scripted? Were you reading into a teleprompter right in front of you?
No, I had no idea what the questions were going to be. I had no idea what the other people were going to say. So it was not scripted. And I mentioned this last time. It was like, I remember going there and I thought, and I did do what I advise people to do, thank God. Like I listed out the things that I wanted to get said. I listed out things that I thought were important based on that topic. And for those who don't know, we were talking about the Me Too movement, and what it was like, what they did was they brought together 5 people on the baby boomer age range, and then, 6 people of the 20-somethings, and they were mixed gender. And so I knew some of the things that I wanted to talk about. And so when the questions were asked, I then would, and I use a lot of brain science to support some of the things that I do or talk about. So when the questions were asked, I would then think about how one of my messages could fit into that question. And so then I would go and I would answer that question based on one of the things that I said or I was thinking. And so it was no script, no teleprompter. And lately I've been doing these videos, short videos on quotations. And somebody asked me also, it's like, do you have a teleprompter, or how do you memorize the scripts? And again, I'm speaking from my heart. Like I have to memorize the quotation, or because it's somebody else's quotation. That's the only thing I memorize. Then I speak from my heart. Those I have the luxury of editing tiny light edits, but most of it is like really coming from your heart. So if you really know what it is that you want to say, and you have to know speaking to the audience, because a lot of times what we're doing is we're speaking to the page, or we're speaking to the, the reviewer. And what we really want to be talking to is the people that are going to be affected. How is that going to be? How am I really going to reach those people? And then that becomes a different conversation. And then you want to get in touch with the why you're talking in the first place. It's like and again, back to the why and the what and the emotion and the logic, the what is what we've created, but the why is why we created it. And if you don't have a really strong why about why you created it, then you should be talking about what it is, So to always, before you go on in any interview, is like, yes, why do I like this? Why am I passionate about this? Why did I write this book? Why did I write this thing? And really get back in touch with that, because that's the fuel that's going to drive you through the interview.
So I have notes here. So Alicia, you just sent me something. Why don't you talk about that? And then Haley, you have a question for Robyn. So Alicia first.
Sure, I put in the chat. What about any advice regarding when you're thrown a curveball, like recovering? I mean, you're completely caught off guard. It's not something you had considered, thought about. Do you have any tips on recovery from curveballs?
Yes,
that'd be great.
That's a common thing, and it's scary. And again, back to the emotional and brain science, because what happens when you're thrown a curveball is all of this hormones start to surge, and fear starts to surge, and you get stupid, because what happened is your brain is saying, oh my God, somebody just tried to kill me. Somebody just tried to kill me by throwing me off guard. And then when the brain is in panic mode, it starts secreting all these hormones that just like like shut down your whole nervous system and your ability to speak and be rational. So that being said, the first thing you want to do is take a deep breath. And again, like all these questions that reporters ask, there is no written assignment or written agreement. I don't think anybody wrote and signed anything that said, I need to answer it within 2 seconds. You know, like we don't write that, right? But we think that we need to. And so in that case, you want to take that moment and take a deep breath. And then one of the recovery is, that's a really interesting question. And that's why I hate when people say it's a really interesting question after every question. You know, stop it. I mean, first of all, what good does it do? The interviewer either knows or doesn't know if it's an interesting question. Most of the time it isn't. By the third time or even by the second time you said it, the validity of your statement is totally awash. So you want to save that statement for these moments precisely, because then it's one of those moments where you can say, that's an interesting question. I really never thought about it. And it's okay to own that. You know, you need to own it, because if you don't own it, what happens is we go in and we think, oh my God, he just told me I should have an answer for that question. He shouldn't have done that. Blah, blah, blah. So you have all those little rabbits and monkeys running around in your head. And so what you want to do is take that breath and say, yeah, I never thought of it that way. That's interesting. Give me a couple of minutes to think about it. And that's okay. I mean, I just did that with Ed. I was silent. You're not supposed to have that much pause. He wanted to give me information. I'm not going to just jump in and give feedback. Let me think about it. So I said, let me think about it for a moment.
Yeah,
so
okay.
that's
okay. Haley, what do you have for question? Haley?
So my question is, Robyn, right now, while so many people have lost their jobs, I put a post up on LinkedIn to help people that had worked with me in the past prepare for interviews or review their resumes. Could you use and would you use all of the same strategies for video interviewing for a job, or are there other things that you would add?
Definitely same strategies. I just coached a young man who was actually I had coached him into his job in finance, and now he wants to go to get his MBA. So I just coached him for his MBA interview, and it had to be video, of course. So what I worked with him are some of the same techniques. You definitely want to get their attention. The same things. You don't need to answer the question as is. And with that, you want to be prepared with stories around your abilities. You know, those really crisp stories. And one of the things that most people do and don't do, especially when they're in the job market, they forget about all of the great stuff that they had. So as an interviewer, as a coach, one of the things that you need to do is pull out all of the great stories that they have, of the experiences that they've had, because we get beaten down and the negativity bias takes over, and we remember the negative things and we forget the real positive things that have happened. And so reminding people of those stories and having those stories in a way that they can get through and make and illustrate the point. And it's so true. The same things happen. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a team player. I'm a this, I'm a that. Oh, who cares? I want an example of where you were a team player. I want an example of how you were this, and like that, I'm going to remember. And I'm sorry, just finishing up with Alicia's point is, after you breathe and after you said it's a good question, you can answer it. You take a short amount of time to answer that question, and that's when that information that you have, all those 3 points that aren't through yet, you bridge it to one of those things. You know, so that's an interesting question. I never thought of it that way. I really don't think it's a very important topic, or I don't think it's a topic for this discussion. What I do think is important for this discussion is, and then you carry it on to one of those things. And that's a fine thing to say. Like, again, you did not sign a contract that I have to answer every question.
Okay, Alicia, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I very frequently find myself being asked to predict the future, which seems like if I had that, I'd be rich and I'd know lottery numbers and be done. But being able to say what's coming in 2021 in my line of work, it's a guess for anybody.
Yeah.
So when you're asked to make these predictions, I really feel put on the spot by those.
Yeah, and just what you said, I think would be a really fabulous answer. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. If I had that answer, I wouldn't even be on your show right now because I'd be a millionaire. I'd be like, I'd be relaxing at a beach in Cabo. So, but what I can do is I can tell you based on my past experiences and based on what metrics I'm seeing right now, I can give you an educated guess, and hopefully that's okay with you. You know, so that's the way that I would pivot that, and using that humor would be a really great thing because then it's a whole different relationship. You're not expected. It's true. You're not expected to know that. Nobody can know that.
So Philip,
You know,
I'd like to ask you a question relating to your role at City University. Do you think that, and this is not scripted and not planned, but I mean, don't you think that Robyn ought to be a professor of media training for all the students to learn how to, if it's not Robyn, then somebody else, but I would think that media training and public speaking and learning how to have presence when you're in a stressful situation would be worth its weight in gold in the college market. What do you think?
I think that, first of all, Robyn is an exceptional talent. I mean, so, you know, what she's talking about and what she does can be with any particular group. And I wouldn't just say the students, I would say the professors, I would say individuals who are looking at going into a job. Matter of fact, it was interesting to hear her talk about just how she coaches individuals when they're going on a job interview, because that's where people fall apart. I find that when I'm coaching individuals regarding a job situation, they could be a doctor, they could be a lawyer, they can have all type of degrees. They know that information, but they don't know how to present themselves. And I think that's what Robyn is talking about. How do you get your points across? How do you use examples that from experience, as opposed to using these broad terms like I'm a people person or I like working with people, which I hate when people use those type of terms. I think that, you know, so yes, certainly Robyn has that talent to do that without a doubt.
Yeah.
Rob Mazel, you have a question for Robyn?
Yeah, hi, Robyn. Just wanted to jump in here. We touched upon the level of the camera a little bit before. I'm curious to get your take on this because I have seen a lot of folks at eye level like this, and I've also seen some people who seem to have positioned the camera up a little so it looks like they're looking up. Is there any benefit to doing it either way or any psychological thing going on, looking up, looking down, looking straight ahead?
I like straight ahead. I mean, I hate the looking up, and I most specifically hate the looking down. But the looking up, I really don't want to be looking up your nose. You know, it's like, what, you know, it's not an attractive angle for the person and for the viewer. So straight on, it's like, and you want to think about, again, with the brain and the way we take in information, is that you want to feel like somebody's being straight with you. You know, and so if somebody's being straight with you, they're looking you straight in the eye. If somebody is condescending to you, they're looking down to you. And if somebody, you know, so if the camera is like, if I'm like down here, then you look really small to me. I look like I'm looking down to you. And if I'm like this, then it looks like, oh, help, you know, I want to talk to you, you know? And I can't. So it's like, so making it eye level, I think is the best thing. And I'm amazed at how many people who, even like when you watch now all these TV shows on Zoom or camera, a lot of people still don't get it right. You know, you're still looking up people's noses a lot of times, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, thank you, Robyn, for that. And one other point that I've noticed, and maybe you can talk to this a bit, is just I often look at the screen and I forget to look at the actual camera because I'm looking at the person talking, but it doesn't then appear that we're making eye contact. Is there a way we can remember to look at the
Yeah, it's very, very tricky. And that's one of the reasons why I like having a webcam as opposed to my camera. And somehow it just made a difference. Like, I still don't have sharing capabilities right now. Okay. But because the webcam is a slightly above my camera, the way I have it situated. And so, and it's cute, it's like this little thing, it's got blue lights around the side. And so if I'm looking at it, it looks like a whole additional thing. And I was like, oh. And in the beginning, I still don't do it, like with all of you on the camera, I still am looking at you sometimes because I want to see what your expressions are. But if I'm delivering content and I'm delivering a message, I'm going to look at that camera. And so one of the things that you might want to do is you can even put a picture above it. I've heard of people doing that. Like just position a picture of something above it, or put a mirror behind you so that then you're more tempted to like look up into the camera. But yeah, that's a huge thing. It's like, because if you're looking down at the people, it looks like your eyes are closed most of the time. But I really advise getting a webcam. You can even put the webcam on a tripod, and then you're looking beyond the computer.
Great, thank you. So Alicia, have we answered your questions? And I would have a question about World at Work. Is media training taught during your sessions?
We're going virtual with several of our events, and we are doing some media training. We'll be doing moderator training and facilitator training and speaker training. I'll be a part of probably every aspect of those. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that I'm prepared as well. And even though our virtual platform provider is going to provide something, I certainly wanted to take advantage of additional resources as well. So that would be why I'm here.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm really glad to have you, and I want you to come back. So Robyn, let me ask you a question about, for instance, I have an itchy nose. It's not a good idea to touch the face, right?
Right.
So how do you handle that without looking weird?
That's an interesting question. Like I have a similar issue sometimes, because sometimes when I get involved in passionate talking, I get a runny nose. So just in all disclosure, so that can be
really bad.
challenging. So I always have tissue nearby, and then what I do is I surreptitiously can turn around and just do something like that, you know, and stuff happens on video, stuff happens, and what you want to do is like turn around and do that. The other thing you could do is, unless you're in the middle of talking, is you can do like that, do what you need to do, and come back.
That's it. Oh yeah, just quick mute.
Yeah.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everybody ready to mute and scratch. Right?
That's why you have a really nice photo on your camera thing, so that people like still know you're there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So Miriam, in Milan, you are teaching, coaching executives in Milan, correct?
Yes, well, not only Milan, actually I work worldwide. So currently I have most of my clients in Italy and Switzerland and Germany.
Yeah, okay. And so once again, you're going to be on Global TV with me in a conversation in late June, and we'll invite everybody to come back, and we'll have a global audience. And we're going to be talking about exactly what you're doing. So Don Chance, when you talk to people who are relocating today or recently, is it by video, or is it on the phone, or do you actually do it in person?
A blend of all three, but currently with COVID conditions, I've been doing more and more video interactions. I still do a lot of phone work, but video is definitely becoming more and more, taking more and more of the share of my presentation time.
So when you show furnishings or apartments, do you take along a camera and then broadcast it?
I have not yet. It's a wonderful idea. I'm going to trademark that before you can get to it, Ed. And now that's a wonderful idea, but currently, no, have not. Of course, we've been locked down too. So
Yeah. Oh, so there's a cat. Does the cat speak? No. No meow.
It has a question.
He did, but I muted him. Yeah, obviously when I'm doing a normal presentation, I would be closed off. I am not at the moment.
So, Robyn, when animals come on screen, what do you do?
I have to acknowledge them. Yeah, it's one of those things that like you have to acknowledge it, because if you don't, again, that sends you down the rabbit hole of nerves.
Oh, well, that's an animal.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, acknowledging them and in a light way, but not take a lot of time and a lot of attention around it, and then it's gone.
Yeah. So I want to go back to Rob Maisel. Rob is a cross-cultural trainer and also speaks in a few languages. Rob, why don't you talk a little bit with me and the audience about the idea of all of us learning a few phrases that we could use to feel, to convey communications with people who are different from each other.
Sure, Ed. There's such value in another language, and when I speak about this, I speak from personal experiences, having learned languages to be able to communicate with people. Basically learned in the place, most of these languages were learned in the place of where it's spoken, and what I found is that people are able to communicate more naturally in their native tongue, and a lot of times there's this fear that people have of making mistakes when they speak a new language, but we don't even speak our own native language perfectly. So that's just silly, right? So when we get out there and we realize that we're going to be making mistakes regardless, and the best way that we can do it is just be confident in making those mistakes, because that's how we're going to learn. I think people feel that vulnerability, and people are able to connect with us on a more human level, and because they're not needing to translate anything.
Right. So, Haley, is BigCommerce hiring people?
Yes, we're hiring a lot of people right now. It's this market has been good for our company. When businesses were forced to shutter, they needed to move online, and so our business went up in the roof. Unusual, definitely unusual right now.
And what is it? What is the business, Haley?
It's we're an e-commerce platform. We help merchants sell online. So we're like Shopify. Shopify is our competitor.
Got it. Wow, cool.
So Haley, are you interviewing people by Zoom?
Yes, Zoom, Google Hangouts, that sort of thing, and coaching candidates for interviews with executives, trying to prep them. And yes, it was really good advice. Oh, that's a really good question, because I've had that come up so many times. And you know, when someone does it by the 5th time, you're like, oh, you really don't know.
I know
that.
The guy I was just coaching did that with every single question. And I just like, stop, you can't do that. Yeah.
So Philip, is that a leadership competency? I would say so.
No, definitely. And being able to communicate impactfully, effectively, is definitely a leadership competency. And unfortunately, because you need to be able to connect. It's not really, what the real issue is that you need to connect with people. That's what you really need to do. And so communication not only has to do with speaking, it has to do with listening very well.
Yeah, so true. And listening, and it just reminded me of something, that whole part about connecting. And this is a critical part of what I teach in communication as well, is that, and for media interviews, it comes true too. It's like people listen. There's so many different communication styles. Like Robert, you know, like with different languages, there are different ways people speak the language. But if I cannot speak to Robert in Greek if he doesn't speak Greek, but a lot of times what we do in English is we speak in this way that we expect people to hear us, because it's the way that we speak. but everybody doesn't hear and listen and understand things in the same way because we have different communication styles. And so one of the things that's really important before a media interview, before any kind of interview, is to try to get as much information about the communication style of the person who's going to be interviewing you, because that's going to impact the type of questions they have and the type of answers you want to give. You know, for example, like the book that I've written is called Standing Ovation Presentations, and it's all about something I call actor types and how to put together a front of the room presentation. But the actor types, I outline 9 different communication styles. And like, I'll just go over the first 4. As an actor, you get to see that there's like the hero, there's a superhero, there's a whiz kid, and then there is a buddy, you know, so like you have the buddy movie. So, but if you're being interviewed by somebody who's a superhero with all this information, all they care about is results and all they care about is getting things done, they're going to have this hard-paced, driving style of interviewing. And if you are not prepared for that, you might get, and you happen to have your own communication style is more the buddy style, where I want to like have a conversation, I want to have a cup of coffee, and like that, and you get thrown in with the superhero, you might get wiped off, and you might get wiped out, you might come off sounding really weak or insignificant. And so you want to prepare. If you're know that your media person is this superhero, then your answers are going to be boom, like, here's the point, this is the result that I have, this is the information I have, and I'm boom, 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 and I'm going to be much more direct. And if you have, and then maybe you turn into Oprah, but you have the superhero of a heart, so but your interviewer is an Oprah, then you're going to have to know how to have a little bit of rapport building and a little bit of communication and a little bit of sharing personal stories and personal incidences, because that's what the interviewer style is. And that goes to interpersonal communication as well. So listening and understanding, like in the very beginning, is like, what kind of interviewer is this going to be? What kind of person is this? What style do they have? How do I need to adjust my style so that it is heard by the other person? Because otherwise, heard and understood. Because just like I said, if I'm speaking Greek and they're like, huh? You know, I don't get it. So that's thanks for reminding me of that, Philip.
So we have to bring this to a close. I could do this forever. I'll tell you, you guys, all your alpha personalities, type A's, that made my job today really simple. So Robyn, what's your website? Where can people?
Yeah, you can find out about me, robynhatcher.com, ROBYN, Hatcher.com. And please reach out on LinkedIn. I'm just Robyn Hatcher, ROBYN, Hatcher, HATCHER, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Let me know what you need. Because what I do is I do this training, I do facilitation training, I do moderator training, I do public speaking training straight up the back, and I speak at events giving this type of information. Next week, I'm going to be doing a team of 550 people at American Express,
Whoa.
you know, talking about that interpersonal communication. And then I did the one-on-one coaching for anybody who either has to give a speech or have a person. How I got into American Express is I have a client who, after working with me for a few months, was able to get a promotion like this, you know, because of just knowing how to position herself, knowing how to communicate what she does and what she values, was able to be seen by the managers and get promoted.
Okay, now I got a question for you that you don't know is coming. You're in New York, Philip, you're in New York, Rob, you're in New York. So what's it like to have the city open up?
Well, I was able to go to Starbucks today.
And wearing a mask?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think wearing a mask is essential, definitely, because that's the only way that we're going to stay open. I see I haven't been on the subway yet. I'm on the Upper West Side, but I've been able to get around. The buses are clean. There are a lot more people on the streets. A lot more restaurants are having deliveries. in the area. So, I feel I'm pretty upbeat on it. And I think that the governor has done a great job in helping individuals to insisting that individuals operate smartly and enabling us to really bend the curve, as you call it, not just to flatten the curve, but to bend it. And so I think that's where we're going to be far ahead. And if we continue to have that, and even though there are the protests that have been going on, outside of a few things where there was some looting, but for the most part, it's very peaceful, and I think that people are exercising very important rights, and which I think are needed. So it's really highlighting things and awareness that's important to us. I'm taking up too much time, but anyway, that's my.
Let me ask you a question. Anyone can jump in. So are banks open, and will they allow people wearing masks come in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Banks so I think there's some branches of certain banks that are not all branches aren't open, but you're able to find out how to get around, how to get your money, and if you have an app for any of your banks, you can easily access your money, get it, and whatever.
Well, here in Italy, you can only go to the bank with a prior appointment.
Wow.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting. Yeah. Okay. So,
Robyn, I don't know where you live in New York, but you're in New York?
I live right by Union Square.
Oh, Robyn, I'm not
yeah.
too far. I'm just east.
Yeah.
I'm in the East Village, just east
Oh,
of you.
really? Yeah, 15th and 5th. Where in the East Village are you?
Do you know Stuyvesant Town?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in there. So around 14th
Oh, okay.
and 1st.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, yeah, the one change for me, I mean, I still don't go out. My husband went back to work, so that was a big change for the opening coming yesterday. So
interesting.
yeah.
And so Miriam, Italy's opened up now, right?
Yes, more or less. I mean, there are several companies that still have remote working until the end of August.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And can tourists come in?
Not yet, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So very nice to have you all here. Thank you, Robyn, for being a leader. RobynHatcher.com. This is just great. Rob, how can people find out about your new book and what you're doing?
So there is a landing page that I created where people can jump along and join in on the journey. I've holding myself accountable and allowing people to join this journey and receive weekly updates. And I can pop that into the chat, Ed, if it's helpful, if anybody's interested in following the journey of the book writing process. Please welcome on board.
Yeah, put it in chat. And Miriam, do you want to announce your website, or you want to write it in chat? Don, you also? And Philip? PhilipBerry.com, is that right? No, Philip Berry Associates.
Yeah, Philip at PhilipBerryAssociates.com. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay.
I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, so it's easy to get to.
Yeah, okay, good. So Robyn Hatcher, thank you so much for being a leader. You're a spark and an inspiration to me, and you're a real communicator, and wish you well.
Great. Thank you so much, Ed.
Thanks so much, Robyn.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robyn. Thanks,
Thank
Ed.
you.
Thanks,
great.
Robyn.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm signing off. Let's all have a great day.